Listen, y'all, this changes everything in the Nolan Wells case, all right? Investigators have now released a new Nolan Wells timeline report and photos. That's the good part about it, providing a closer look at key moments in the investigation. In this video, we are going to break that down. We're going to break down what was released, what stands out, and what these new details could mean as the case continues to unfold. I'm Uda. Welcome to On Go. If you're new here, make sure you're subscribing to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you're notified when we're dropping new content. But remember, like the video, share the video, and any of these videos, remember to hype them because that's how you keep us in the algorithm. So salute to everybody. Let's get on go. All right, cool. Let's get right to this work. All right. Here we go, y'all. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right. Nolan Wells, geospatial timeline and vessel movements analysis, Horn Island, Mississippi, the 4th of July, 2026. As you can see, we got boat 1, boat 2, boat 3, and we got boat X, which also is a boat in question. And then we got Warren here on the Palm Beach. So this is breaking down all of the boats and all of that for us as well. So salute to that. All right. Cool. Let me just make sure this is charging. Yes, it is. All right. Figure 1. The source image showing boat 1, boat X, boat 2, and boat 3 in relation to the Palm Beach viewpoint. This boat is called the Palm Beach. And from this viewpoint, that's all the other boats. This report organizes the supplied photographs, videos, annotations, and coordinates and social media statements. It is not a law enforcement finding and does not determine the criminal or civil responsibilities, though. 1. The investigative focus. The central questions are straightforward, but the available record is not yet complete. Point 1. At what time? Which boats were present? Which boats were moved? When did they move? Who was aboard them? When did the Triton begin taking on water? What happened between Nolan's last independently corroborated sighting and the 1631 departure of the boat on which Nolan arrived at Horn Island? Analytical premise. There remains a material gap in the timeline. The most useful next step is not to force a conclusion, but to identify which events are visually documented and which are reported by witnesses, which are only annotated by secondary sources, and which remain unknown. All right. I just want to make sure I check my audio. 2, the executive findings. Sometimes you could do this and you can't even, you'd be surprised. You can't even hear nothing. Just want to make sure we don't go the right way. Just want to make sure we don't go the right way. All right, cool. I'm going to check it. Geospatial anchor, the MDMR, which is the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, search datum shown in the supplied correspondence. And they show the degrees 30, 14, 622 north. They go into all of the approximates, right? You can see them on the screen. A separately supplied map pin that was at 30 degrees, 1437.6 north, 88 degrees, 4637.7 west, is only about 1.6 meters from that point. So these two depictions therefore appear to refer to essentially the same location, subject to normal map or GPS precision. Second map point. A second supply coordinate 30 degrees, 1441.0 north, 88 degrees, 0.46, 47.4 west is approximately 279 meters from the MDMR origin vessel datum, and the media supplied here does not establish what event that second point represents. So now vessel cluster, the because you see all those boats together. Vessel cluster. The annotated stills consistently depict a cluster that the source labels boat 1, boat X, boat 2, and boat 3, the Palm Beach, and the Triton. The images supported relative positions comparison, but the labels themselves are user source annotations rather than independent vessel registrations. Okay? Identifications. Embedded time evidence. Two supplied screen recording videos display phone interface clock times of approximately 3:23 and 4:27. The 4:27 recording shows boats and people in the anchorage. Because these are clocks visible inside captured social media content, they should be treated as timing indicators, not automatically as verified original camera timestamps. 4:31 departure hinge. The stated 16:31 departure time of the boat on which Nolan arrived at Horn Island sits only minutes after the 4:27 embedded clock visual. If the 4:27 time corresponds to the event itself, that media could highly be probative of the immediate pre-departure vessel configuration. Original file metadata or platform post metadata is needed to authenticate that interface. Post 431 witness material. A supplied social media statement places an almost fighting group around 5 p.m. and says that a Bertram with a blue top left shortly thereafter, pretty fast. A reply disputes that the relevant person was Nolan and says a different young man was present. This conflict is important precisely because it prevents treating the 5 p.m. account as a confirmed sighting of Nolan. Please make sure you are liking, make sure everybody is voting on that poll, all right? Salute to everybody. Hopefully y'all have had a good day so far, and hopefully you continue to, all right? Late observations. Another supplied social media image states that the commenter was parked next to the group and that Nolan was nowhere in sight. When the commenter left at 7:30, this is a reported observation, not an independently verified by the supplied media. Core gap. The supplied package does not by itself establish a continuous, independently corroborated chain from Nolan's last known sighting through 4:31 p.m. The gap remains the critical analytical interval. 1650 configuration point. The newly supplied 1650 photograph adds a post 1631 visual checkpoint, Frontier Bay. Boat number 2 is no longer in its earlier original position, consistent with the fight video still. If the time is authenticated, the movement occurred by 1650, although the exact movement time remains unknown. All right, so let's stay there. We're on page 3, but let's scroll back up so we can see the position of boat 2. Okay, so this was boat 2. You see boat 3 is on the right, boat 2 is right next to that, boat X is in the middle, and boat 1 is over there, and the Palm Beach boat where Warren's on is right here. So we just want to make sure visually we get a seeing of where it's at. You see what I'm saying? So we can get lost. All right, cool. So let's go back to page 3. I just read all of that, right? Cool. All right, we're on page 4. Evidence classifications and limitations. To avoid overstating the evidence, this report uses the following hierarchy. Goes into the categories, the meanings, and the examples in this report. Category 1, direct visual observation, meaning a feature visible in the supplied photograph or video without relying on a label for identity. You got the boat's hulls, the flags, relative positions, crowds, shorelines on screen, clock display. Category 2, source annotation, a label placed on an image by the source uploader, useful for hypotheses, but not building self-authenticating. Boat 1, Boat X, the Triton, the Palm Beach, and Warren is on the Palm Beach. Category 3, the documentary statement, text shown in the correspondence or social media screenshots. The MDMR, which is the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, Datum, Matthew Lamp, Melissa Thomas, and Caitlin Burchard statements. 4, analytical interference, a conclusion derived from the combining 2 or more observation. The MDMR datum and the 30 degree 1437.6 and 88 degree 4637.7 pin are essentially coincident. And the last category, unresolved. The supplied record is insufficient to establish that fact. And exact occupancy of the vessel authenticated event time of every clip on set of the Triton waters ingress. Number 4, source media inventory. Source 1, it's a file. Next is content, and then the analytical usage. All right. So we have a file, which is 31 marked 31654 JPG. It's a JPG image, which is under 2 MBs. That's what it means. It's not a PNG, right? Annotated fight video still. Boat number 1, POV position, me looking this way. This is the POV position, right? POV, boat number 2, boat number 3, and boat X noted missing at this point. Relative configuration movement comparison. A2 is another image. Second fight video still with the boat number 1 and POV, boat number 2 and boat number 3. It's still a relative configuration. Number A3, another still image, which is a JPG, 31656. Annotated still of boat 1, boat X, boat number 2, and boat number 3, and warrants on the Palm Beach. So that seems like the image that I just showed you above, because that got all boats in play with Warren being on the Palm Beach right here. Vessel cluster comparison. We see all of the boats clustered in an anchorage position because they all like anchored down at the shoreline, all in a cluster, right? A4, 31439 JPG. A map annotation, LE search coordinate, asserted actual anchor point and found marker. Hypothesis map, labels required verification. A5, 31657 JPG. A composite annotated image identifying the Palm Beach, the Triton boat, number 2 and number 3. Vessel relation to occupancy annotation. Who's on the boats, right? A6, 31440 JPG. An aerial view of the island, a geospatial orientation, letting us know the position and of where everything is at. Okay. A7, this image, another image, which is 31445 JPG, is the MDMR correspondence with July 4th, 1800 CST, which is Central Time, and the search datum, primary documentary geospatial datum. A8, a map pin of 30 degrees, 1437.6 north, 88 degrees, 4637.7 west, which they said earlier are the same position, even though one is north and one is west. It seems like they're all in the same area still, okay? Coordinate comparisons. A9, okay? Now we at A9. 31442, an aerial view, which is a blue marker and geospatial orientation. A10, a map pin of 30 degrees, 1441.0 north and 88.4647.4 west, which is a second coordinate comparison. Now we at B1. Let me take you here so you know exactly where we're at. B1, Matthew Lamp's social media statement read 5 p.m. almost fighting and the Bertram departure. Witness claims timeline. B2, Melissa Thomas replied disputing the identification and describing contact with the group. Conflicting witness claim analysis. B3, Caitlin Brashard post stating subject not in sight when the group left at 7:30. Late witness claim timeline. B4, a wide shoreline panorama with 3 blue arrows. Anchorage geometry, vessel density. V1, 52.6 panoramic shoreline boat cluster video, a spatial context, just to know where we're at, a spatial context. V2, 24.7 S, south. Social media screen recording of the shoreline cluster, which is a spatial context. V3, 13.5 S, south. Vertical social media recording, phone Clock shows 4:27 p.m. Potential immediate pre 4:31 visual. V4 52.6S panoramic shoreline boat cluster video spatial context. V5 15.5S vertical social media recording phone clock shows 3:23 p.m. a potential earlier event time indicator. And C1 finally a shoreline photograph represented as taken at 16:50 Central Time on the 4th of July 2026 at Frontier Bay. We got boat number 2 is no longer in its earlier original position. So post 1631 vessel configuration comparisons, movement upward bound if the time is authenticated. Here we go with a geospatial. Okay, cool. This is what I have anyway. I have this, so I'll bring this up quicker for you. The MDMR origin vessel datum, the supply documentary coordinates, they give you the coordinates, described in the MDMR correspondence as being on origin vessel GPS data and associated at 1800 Central Time on the 4th of July 2026. And this is the first time that we get where they say Nolan was drinking heavy. Okay, I have this image in my StreamYard loaded up already, but since it's here big, I could probably just be able to zoom it in, right? So you can see it clearly now. See? So I'll read it for you if you want me to, because this is the first day. This is when they're actually looking for Nolan. Okay, so it goes to what he has on. So they said, as part of our response, the MSDMR requests SAR data. They're trying to do sonar as well, and data related to the missing person, Nolan Wells. The MDMR, the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, will use this data to start sonar scans in the area while information is still limited, but we request the following to be used for the data. So they go into the date and the time. They go into the time. They go into the location, the knots and everything where he's at, right? Based on what the sightings are, right? The male, black, 6'1", 180 pounds. His food intake is unknown, but here's where we get the first sight of that. His alcohol intake is heavy. So obviously somebody that is probably in his friends group would say that he's drinking heavy. Who else is saying that he's drinking heavy? It could be another person that they was there around and seen him drinking heavy. He could have been stumbling. Who knows what kind of physical state he was in, right? But more than likely, let's lead to say maybe the friends are the ones that gave them this kind of description of his mental state or his physical state, right? Okay, cool. So as far as these are the locations that they said when you're going to 1437.6 north and the 88.46, 37.7 west. And you see that they're both in the same location on this one. See? Same location. Let me zoom it better so you see it, right? Right there so you can see it clean. Okay. And Horn Island is a pretty big island, man. It's actually a pretty big island. Okay. Calculated comparisons. The figure 3A is approximately 1.6 meters from the MDMR original vessel datum. Now, the figure 3B is approximately 279 meters from the MDMR datum and about 279 meters from figure 3A. And this is a strong geospatial match for figure 3A, but does not by itself establish when the vessel occupied that point or what occurred there, right? So let's just go back and look at it again, just for our own eyes, because they said this one in figure B is 279 meters from figure 3A, and 3A is on the left-hand side, all right? And this is the original place where the cluster of boats are in 3A. This is what they're saying to us, okay? So we all getting it together in real time, breaking it down, okay? Cool. Let's move on. Shoreline context, inverted to denote a north-south view of Horn Island. Okay, so figure 4A is supplied aerial island of the tip view with a blue marker, and figure 4B is the second supplied aerial view, also with a tip view as well. The aerial image show the relationship between the north side anchorage shoal and the island tip without an image containing a scale bar, north arrow, and a verified camera position. Precise bearings should not be inferred from the photographs alone. Now, here is a working timeline. Let's get into this working timeline, all right? All right. Salute to everybody. If you're new here, make sure you're subscribing. I want y'all to hit that like button. I want y'all to vote on the poll. Do you think it was any foul play in this case? If you feel it was no foul play, then just hit no. If you think it was, hit yes. Get in the comment section. If you really want your comment highlighted in red and put on the screen, all you got to do is send a super chat of any denomination. It doesn't matter. All right. Salute to everybody that's supporting the channel. Okay. We go into the time, the event observations, the evidence status, and then the actual source, okay? So category 1, before 3:23 p.m., no continuous chronology established in the supplied package, so it's unresolved as far as evidence goes. There's no source. 3:23 p.m., a supplied vertical screen recording displays a phone clock of 3:23 p.m. while showing the crowded anchorage and the nearby boats. So that's all of them in that cluster of boats, right? And they all anchored, right? So time indicators not authenticated, original capture time, then they go into V5 and it goes into that. This is an MP4. So this is the actual visual. It's a video, right? Last independently corroborated sighting. User identifies this as the start of the critical gap. Exact time and corroborating source are not contained in the supplied media package. So it's unresolved in this package. User investigative premise. So the person themselves are the ones that's saying this, right? From their own eye, basically is what they're saying to us. 4:27 p.m. A second supplied vertical screen recording displays a phone clock of 4:27 p.m. while showing boats and people in the anchorage. A time indicator potentially highly relevant. And then they go into that. This is also a video because we see that is a V3311453, which is the number, and it is an MP4. So it's a video, right? 4:31 p.m. The boat on which Nolan arrived at Horn Island departed at 16:31. Per the user supplied timeline, this is what the people saying, okay? Per the user supplied timeline, the supplied package does not include the underlying GPS engine and AIS record proving this time, like the boats, coordinates, and all of these other things, right? So asserted hinge, underlying record not supplied. This is, again, a user investigative premise. At 5 o'clock p.m., Matthew Lamp states a passenger was pretty certain that a person was a part of the group that was almost fighting around 5 p.m. And he says that Bertram with the blue top left shortly afterward and fast, not believed to be a factor at this time. So this is secondhand social media claim. So maybe that's that video that we see going by. Maybe that's the person that took that video where we actually hear the argument or something ensuing. Maybe that's taking place around 5 o'clock, right? But this is a still image though. So this is not a video. This is a still image. So we gotta get down to the bottom of this. Is that part of the video that we've seen, or is this something else? All right. Because remember, we did see somebody in blue around that time too, right? And people were saying that Nolan was a part of that fight footage or whatever was happening, the little kerfuffle that was happening. Remember, many people were saying that online. Okay, 5 p.m. conflicting. Now, this is a conflicting statement. Melissa Thomas disputes the identification and states that a different young man was with the group and says that they spoke to the boys, one of whom who had an entire vodka bottle. Wow. I wonder who that was. 6 p.m. The MDMR correspondence later uses 1800 Central Time with the origin vessel's GPS datum for SAR sonar planning. This should not be interpreted automatically as a sighting time. This is a documented search planning time, and they give it to you that this is also a still shot because you see JPG. Okay, PNG, JPG are photographs or images. MP4 is visual, is video. Okay, so we're just looking out for that, so we could get our bearings on where we're at. 7:30 p.m. Caitlin Bouchard states that they were parked next to the group, and he was nowhere in sight when they left at 7:30. Now it takes him from 7:30 back to 4:50 p.m., 1650 Central Time. They said new supplying shoreline photograph shows that the crowded Anchorage Frontier Bay boat Number two is no longer in its earlier original position, because we know that the original position of boat two is right here. We got one boat here, we got boat two, we got boat XS3, and then we got the next boat here, right? And then we got the Palm Beach where Warren's on is in this position in the photograph that I started at the very beginning of this video. Okay, so that's how we getting our bearings on what boat is what and what position that they talking about which boat. Okay, I want you to keep that in mind. All right, user supply capture timeline direct visual configuration. Okay, so we do have an image, so the visual is what they're comparing that with. They're comparing that with. Okay, now this is critical. The critical interval, the period requiring the most scrutiny, is the interval between the last independently corroborated sighting of Nolan and the asserted 4:31 p.m. Triton departure. Now, the 3:23 p.m. and the 4:27 p.m. visual material may bracket or illuminate part of that interval, but only if it displayed clock times can it be authenticated as corresponding to the original event recordings. The supplied media does not close that gap. Okay? I'll read that again if you need me to. The period requiring the most scrutiny is the interval between the last independently corroborated sighting of Nolan and the asserted 4:31 p.m. Triton departure time. Now, the 3:23 p.m. and the 4:27 visual material may bracket or illuminate part of that interval, but only if the displayed clock times can be authenticated as corresponded to the original event recordings. The supplied media does not close that gap. All right. That seems important. Make sure we double up and read that twice. Okay. So we got vessel, we got the present, we got the vessel presence, the movement, and the occupancy matrix. Okay. So boat number one, shown by annotation, one still explicitly labels boat number one from a POV position, right in front of your face, POV. Okay. First person's view, right? Source comparison says boat X is missing in later view. No GPS track supplied for boat number one. No verified roster supplied. Moderate for visual presence, low for identity occupancy. Obtained original video and vessel ID registration. As far as boat X, annotated between boat number one and boat number two. Remember, there's a boat here, there's boat number two, there's boat number X, and it's boat number one, and this is Warren here, where the picture is POV, where we see all those boats there. And remember, Warren's on the Palm Beach boat. Okay, cool. Just make sure we got out where we at. Apparent absence in later image is evidence of a configuration change, but exact movement time is not established of when boat X moved. There's no verified roster supplied. Moderate for configuration change, low for the timing. Determine vessel identity and original captures times. Boat number two, the Frontier Bay. Repeatedly annotated in this earlier cluster, user identifies this vessel as a Frontier Bay. It's no longer in its earlier original position in the 1650 Central Time photograph. Same positional change is visible in the fight video still. Exact movement time remains unresolved. There's no verified roster supplied. Moderate for configuration change, stated at 1650 Central Time, requires authentication. So this time still needs to be required to be authenticated. Determine exact movement time, destination, the occupants, and primary vessel track of where it's going or where it's headed, right? Boat number three, repeatedly annotated near cluster Palm Beach side, okay? Remember, boat number three is right here, towards the right, right? No definitive movement track in supply package. No verified roster supply, moderate visual, low identity, established registration and occupant list. So they still have to establish these things. The occupant, who, the registration of the boat, yeah, and who was on this boat. It needs to still be verified, okay? Palm Beach, annotated in the composite and vessel cluster image, because this was there too, Palm Beach. No definitive movement track, so they don't know when these boats was moving, really. Annotated source identifies Warren, okay? Warren on the Palm Beach. This is not independent facial identification. This is just them saying that they know that Warren was on the beach because we never got a chance to see Warren's face. Because remember, the picture was taken like this. You see a person, but you don't see the hand. The person is holding the camera, taking a visual shots of all four boats and the cluster of boats that is in the anchorage, right? Moderate for source identification only. Interview roster GPS corroboration. So need all of that. Okay. The Triton, annotated in composite image. User states that the boat on which Nolan arrived departed at 1631. 1631 departure is a central asserted event, but underlying GPS engine record is not included. So they don't have any of those things. So Ben Crump and Nolan's family, them bringing up the civil suit is going to make them have to preserve certain evidence such as these things. What time the boat moved, the boat logs, the fuel up, if the boat fueled up, besides any social media correspondence, electronic correspondence, any emails, any text messages, all of these things, not only for the friends, but for the families of the friends as well as anybody who's representing them. So that means everybody has to preserve evidence. Even evidence that's in your phone that, you know, things say delete after 30 days and stuff like that, you must take that feature off. If you don't take these features off, if it comes a point in time that this heads to trial and you do not have this evidence, this will be brought before the jury. That what was written in the documentation that Ben Crump sent out to the families, right? Annotated source places Nolan on board the Triton in an image, in an earlier image. He was aboard it. Moderate source annotation departure time requires primary record. Obtain vessel GPS, engine, ECU, chart plotter, and original media. Let's figure that out real quick in real time. Hold up. What's the engine ECU? What is the engine ECU? Let's get right to it. Hold up. I want to know what that is. Okay. ECU stands for the engine control unit. It's essentially the computer that controls the engine. It monitors information from sensors and adjusts things like fuel injection, ignition timing, air fuel mixture, engine idle, emission controls, and throttle responses. Okay. So the ECU is actually the engine's brain. Okay, that's the engine's brain. So it's good that we just looked that up so we can know where we're at with this thing. Okay, cool. Bertram with the blue top. Reference in Matthew Lamp's statements not conclusively mapped to boat 1, 2, 3, or X in the supplied material. Lamp says it left shortly after 5 p.m. and pretty fast. Not established. Low pending vessel match and identify exact Bertram and compare the image tracks. This is a comparative configuration. Okay, this is the first. Look, this is the first video. This is Warren on the Palm Beach. We got all the boats in the first image. Zoom it up a little bit more for y'all. And this is the fight video. So as we can see in the fight video, boat X is missing. Where's boat X? And it seems that boat X has like a black, I don't know, what's the rudder, the thing that's on the back of the boat? It seems that it has a black thing on the back of the boat. So that's a good identifier for this boat. Boat X is out of here, though. We don't see boat X. Boat X is missing. Okay, cool. Let's see what's going on. Figure 5A source annotation shows boat X between boat 1 and boat 2. And this is the boat 1 POV. So this is actually boat 1 that they're on right here. Okay. This is the boat 1 POV. And in this one, it says that boat X is missing. What this supports is that the vessel arrangement changed between the two depicted configurations if the source labels are accurate. What it does not yet support is the exact time that boat X moved, its destinations, its occupants, or whether its movement is related to the Nolan Wells disappearance. Mm. This is also the fight video. They go give us another shot of the fight video. This shows us Nolan on board the Triton with boat 2 behind him in view, boat 3 in view, and the Palm Beach with Warren's on it right here, right? In back of them in view. So they was on all the boats. So what boat was Bart on? That's a good question to ask. Where's Bart's boat? Okay. So let's zoom in a little bit. We can see the Triton a little bit better. Okay. The Triton got this thing in the front, though. You see how it looks in the front? And it has a black and white, like, rudder, the thing in the back. Okay. And this is Warren on the Palm Beach. Cool. Cool. Let's go on. 1650 Central Time shoreline photograph. The Frontier Bay positions changed. Frontier Bay is also another boat. All right. So they say source time. The newly supplied photograph is represented as having been taken at 1650 Central Time on the 4th of July, 2026, 19 minutes after the user supplied 1631 departure time of the boat on which Nolan arrived at Horn Island. The key visual observation, the Frontier Bay boat number 2 is no longer in the earlier original position shown in figure 5A, and this is consistent with the later fight video still, where the vessel configuration has likewise changed. Analytical significance. If the 1650 capture time is authenticated, the photograph established an upper bound time. The Frontier Bay had moved from its earlier original position by 1650, but it does not establish the exact minute of the movement, the destination, the occupants, or any connections between the movement and Nolan's disappearance. Nolan possibly in this photo, but not confirmed. Okay, let's zoom it for y'all so y'all can see a little clearer. There was some things on the beach though. The answer was some things on the beach, homie. I don't know why anybody would be fighting over girls. Matt looked like girls on the beach, bro. But you know, men, bro. You seen Helen of Troy, bro. Seen Helen of Troy. Figure 5C, supported shoreline photograph represented as taken at 1650 CST on July 4th, 2026. The Frontier Bay boat is no longer in its original position. So which position is it in now? But you see how it is so many boats out there, though. You know what I'm saying? Could a person be wrong for saying like, "Yo, son, I'll catch another boat"? You know what I'm saying? It's bad. Look like it's mad boats out there, but it just seems very suspicious for Nolan to want to get on another boat at all. Even Katie's sister said that she was surprised that he didn't get on the boat when they was telling him to get on the boat. He was acting like he was getting on the boat, but then he didn't have his cell phone and other belongings. Why would he want to go anywhere without his cell phone? Why would he want another boat to leave him without his cell phone? Is that the reason of why they're specifying that he was heavily drinking and he was drunk? So maybe that's a reason of why he left his phone. Maybe not a reason of, or maybe could speak a reason of why he stayed. Think about that, because the mom don't believe it. She think that's a little distraction to say why he's unalived or why he left his phone or any of these other things. You know what I mean? That's what his mom feels. And I can understand why she feels that. Okay. So we went back and showed that the boat is not in which boat again? The Frontier Bay, boat number 2 is not in this original position. Okay. Let's go back up a little bit. Come on. Let's go back up for 1 second. This page 14. All right. Bear with me. Bear with me. Bear with me. We got to get our bearings. I think we're losing our bearings again. Hold up. Let's go find boat number 2. Okay. This is boat number 2 right here. Okay. Okay, let's see right here. Let's see boat number 2 from far. Okay, boat number 2 has a stripe on the bottom. Does it have like a canopy on it? I know boat number 3 does. It kind of looked like boat number 2 has something going on too. Some sort of like a canopy on top of the boat. Okay, cool. So let's go back now. So we can know exactly what we're thinking about when we're looking at these boats. Okay. 8, a video derived timing indicators. Okay, we got 2 videos here. One from Paige Leonard, one from Anna C. Moore. Okay, let's see what they say. 7A, which is the one on the left, a frame from V5, a phone interface displays approximately 3:23 p.m. 7B, a frame V3, phone interface displays an approximate time of 4:27. Let's see the screenshots. You can see the time on the top of the phones. 3:23 p.m., 4:27 p.m. Okay. Caution on clock interpretation. The displayed times are visible in screen recorded social media content. They may be the phone's current time when the time recording was made rather than the original event recording time. Authentication requires the underlying original post file, platform, metadata, and testimony from the original recorder, the actual person who actually took the video. Okay. Another still shot of all of these boats anchored, looking like some yacht type boats too. Frame V1 showing the density and the lateral spread of the Horn Island anchorage, showing all of these boats that are spread on the shoreline and in anchored positions, and the cluster, and it shows the space in between everything. The wide panorama view videos are valuable for physical context and vessel feature matching. Standing alone, however, they do not supply a reliable event timestamp or a full movement track of what time these boats were moving and what were the destinations for these boats. And even the ECU looking like the engine's brain, you know what I'm saying? The Triton water ingress question. Number 9. We're at number 9 now. Current finding unresolved. None of the supplied stills, videos, correspondence, or social media screenshots establish when the Triton began taking on water. The report, therefore, does not assign a time or a cause. The strongest evidence that could resolve this question would include original onboard photos and videos showing bilge levels, the pumps, the deck scupper, the condition or passenger response, the bilge pump electrical history, the breaker fuse condition, and any automatic pump activation evidence. The chart plotter GPS track and speed changes around the reported departure. The outboard ECU, which is the engine's brain, right? The engine hour, the RPM history where it's available at, and the statements from each Triton occupant taken separately and compared on a minute by minute basis. Any Coast Guard, DMR, Marine Patrol, tow assistance, or VHF traffic referencing water ingress. Number 10, the post-departure witness statements, what they do and do not establish. Hold up. Let's see if we could check something real quick. Just want to Google something to make sure that while that's loaded up, let me see. Maybe we could break down something for us. Okay, post-departure witness statements, what they do and do not establish. This is Matthew Lamps, the first statement. Remember, it's around like what, 5 or 5:30, they said? One of my passengers is pretty certain that he was part of that group that was almost fighting around 5 p.m. See what I told you? The Bertram with the blue top that posted left shortly after and pretty fast. So that was the post. Okay. So let's see. On the right side is the the Melissa Thomas. You see on the top of it what it says? Horn Island, Ship Island, Sand Island, Petite Bowls Island, Cat Island. Matthew Lamp, sir, you are sadly mistaken. We are the group you yelled at as you pulled up thinking that we were going to hit you, and we weren't, and we were paying attention. Totally different kid was with us. I was with the Bertram boat, and we had no affiliation with him. We hate to hear that this has happened, but do not smear people if you did not actually see something happen. This causes more issues for the people in charge trying to find this baby, and it creates stories that are false. We did speak to the boys, and at that moment, he did have an entire vodka bottle in his hand. They talking about Nolan? They said he did, not they did, not one of the boys did. He, are they speaking of Nolan? Wow. You need to revamp your statement and not put blame towards anyone. We don't even know what happened, but I will tell you, you are mistaken. Give the cops my name. I will let them know who we really had on our boats. Crazy, crazy, freaking crazy, bro. Crazy, 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 crazy. Damn, son. Did Nolan have a whole vodka bottle? It's a young guy, bro. Shit, man. It's crazy. Figure 9A, Matthew saying that they almost fighting with the group. Figure 9B, Melissa replies disputing the identification and describing a very different young man. Okay, so who's the young man? Let's go. Analytical significance. The two statements conflict on the identity of the person associated with the group. Lamp's wording itself is secondhand. One of my passengers is pretty certain. It's not all the way proof, though, right? Pretty certain is not certain, right? Thomas explicitly, though, says Lamp is mistaken. Therefore, the material cannot responsibly be presented as the confirmed 5 p.m. sighting of Nolan. Okay? Because he's saying that he is sadly mistaken. She seems more sure than he is, right? And he's speaking about somebody that was on his boat that was pretty certain. Somebody else, not even him. He's speaking from a third person. You know what I'm saying? A third party. Caitlin Brashard. We were parked right next to the, eclipse it off, and he was that boat, I guess, or the young guys or the boys, and he was nowhere in sight when we left at 7:30. What? But didn't their boat, they said they left around like 4:30? Didn't they said the last time they saw Nolan was 3 p.m.? So what you mean the last time you saw Nolan was 3 p.m.? But then this person here is saying that they didn't see Nolan at all, and they seen who? Who was they next to? Which boys were they next to? Or what boat was they next to? And at 7:30 p.m., they said they didn't see Nolan. This is freaking insane, bro. Nowhere in sight. The 7:30 statement is potentially useful as a negative observation, but only after establishing exactly where the commenter's vessel was located, what area was visible, and how long the commenter was present, and how the commenter knew whom to look for. Yeah, how did they know who to look for? 11, the missing piece. The evidence presently supplied does not answer the most important question. What happened during the uncorroborated, uncorroborated interval immediately before the asserted 1631 departure of the boat on which Nolan arrived at Horn Island? The working reconstruction suggests five specific evidentiary problems that must be solved together. 1. Authenticate the last independently corroborated sighting of Nolan, exact time, location, source, and the medium. Authenticate the 3:23 p.m. and 4:27 media, which is those still shots from the two people on social media, right? Determine whether those times are event times, post times, or screen recorded times, right? That looked like the time of day to me because that's on the top of the phone. It don't look like a post time. It looked like, yeah, the time that it was probably posted or captured. Better yet, I can understand what they're saying because you could have captured an image at a time. You know what I'm saying? That don't mean you posted it at that time. You see what I'm saying? So I do understand what they're saying. Okay, number 3, identify boat X and determine when it left, the configuration shown besides boat 1, boat 2, and where it went, and who was aboard the boat. Number X, boat labeled X. Authenticate the 1631 departure of the boat on which Nolan had arrived at Horn Island using primary electronic data rather than a recollection, rather than somebody's thinking, going by the boat manifest, whatever, who's on the boat, you know what I'm saying? All of those different things. Not on just based on somebody's thoughts in their brain and what the hell they thinking. Makes sense. Create a complete occupant by occupant vessel roster and compare each person's statement against the visual record. Until those 5 points are resolved, any narrative that claims certainty about Nolan's movements during that gap exceeds what the supplied evidence can support. 12. Recommended evidence requests. Original media. Attain first generation files for every still video. The first image, the actual originals, first generation. Include XIF, QuickTime, metadata, platform download data, and unedited originals before labels were even added to them. Vessel electronics, which are the chart plotter tracks, the GPS breadcrumbs, the engine ECU records, the AIS, if any, the trolling motor tracks, the VHF logs, and the phone navigation histories for Triton, Palm Beach, and the boats labeled 1, 2, 3, and X. The phones, with appropriate legal authority and consent, original photo and video metadata, location history, message timestamps, and airdrop text exchanges from occupants during that critical interval. The witness matrix. Interview occupants separately, ask each to draw vessel positions and identify who was aboard each boat at 15-minute intervals. Shit, people drinking. Can you remember these things? Maybe with pictures and stuff, maybe it can jog your memory. Visual matching. Use hull color, rub rail, T-top geometry, outboard count model, flag mounts, decals, and console layouts to link unlabeled videos to identified vessels. Water ingress. Determine the first observation, the first pump activation, when that pump went on, who noticed it, what action was taken, and whether the water ingress affected the decision to depart at all. Were you taking on water when you was on shore in your anchor position, or what time, at what point did you begin to take on water? The search datum provenance. Obtain the raw original vessel GPS data underlying the MDMR, the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, right? 1800 Central Time correspondence, and clarify whether the coordinate denotes anchor position, last known position, a reporting position, or a search planning datum. Visual context plates. Okay, so we know that this boat has like some sort of like what is it called, a T-top or something on the top, like a canopy type thing on the top of this boat. This other boat over here has something else just visually that sticks out, right? Wide shoreline image with 3 source added blue arrows. Okay, we got another arrow right here looking like bound by the shoreline, looking like people camped out outside on the beach. Useful for anchorage scale orientation, not precise geolocation without camera position data. The fight video. Boat X is missing in the fight video. Where is boat X? A2, the fight video. The configure is annotated as boat number 1, POV, boat number 2, boat number 3, with boat X stated as to being missing. The appendix B, analytical conclusion by question. At what time? The package contains a documented MDMR search planning time of 1800 Central Time, social media screen recording showing 3:23 and 4:27 p.m. Social media claims around 5 p.m. and 7:30. That's the one woman and the man, right? That was talking, conflicting. And the user supplied 1631 departure of the boat on which Nolan arrived at Horn Island. The original event timestamp for the most imagery remains unauthenticated. Which boats were present? Source annotations identify boat 1, boat X, boat 2, and boat 3, and the Palm Beach, as well as the Triton, in overlapping visual configurations. Vessel registrations, identities are not independently established in the supplied package. Which boats moved? Boat X is annotated as present in one of the configurations and missing in another. The Frontier Bay, boat number 2, is no longer in its earlier original position in the supplied 1650 photograph. 1650 is the time, Central Time. Consistent with the fight video still, which we just saw. These observations support configuration changes, but exact movement times remain unresolved. When did they move? Frontier Bay, boat number 2, had changed from its earlier position by 1650 if it supplied the photograph time is authenticated and the exact minute of the movement is not established. Original files, timestamps, and vessel tracks are required. Who is aboard them? The source annotations identify Nolan on the Triton and Warren on the Palm Beach in particular images. That's the one when they both got the drinks when Nolan's on the boat, right? With one of his friends. And the next boat image, we see Warren on that boat too, is on the Palm Beach. Complete authenticated occupant roster is supplied. When did the Triton begin taking on water? Not established by the supplied evidence. That's crazy that they don't know when the Triton started to take on water. And then they canceled the tow. If they was waiting for the tow, maybe that could be closer to establishing the time, because those people are going to document it. They got a tow from their friend after calling for a tow. So this is where some of that gets missing. You know what I'm saying? What happened between the last corroborated sighting and 1631? This remained the principal unresolved interval, and the 323 and 427 media may be critical if authenticated, but the package does not yet provide a continuous chain of observation. Bottom line, the geospatial evidence strongly ties the MDMR origin vessel datum to the supplied 30 degrees, 14, 37.6 north, 88 degrees, 46, 37.7 west map point. The visual record also documents a changing vessel configuration, but the decisive chronology, Nolan's locations and interactions immediately before 431, and the exact movements of the relevant vessels and the onset of the Triton water ingress when it began taking on water remains incomplete. And those are the facts that should drive the next evidence collection effort. What sticks out is this thing though, right here. When did the Triton begin taking on water? And they said they have not established that by supplied evidence already. That's weird as hell, bro. That they didn't establish that, right? But I can understand why they didn't as well, because again, they set out for a tow, right? They set out for a tow, but then they canceled it. I think the grandfather canceled the tow, right? If they received that tow, then we would have been able to probably figure that out, because the people that came to tow them would have been documenting that time, the time when they getting out there, probably coordinating back on phones. Yo, where you at? You still there? Yo, are you taking on more water? What's going on? You know what I'm saying? All right, cool. Look, we on our way. All right, cool. So those correspondence would have been documented whole time. Even though they on their way, they probably still checking and say, yo, how high is the water now? Things like that. You know what I mean? checking in on you. Correspondence, you got digital tracks, digital record, phone record, some kind of record. And then the time they actually reach you to actually give you the toll is going to establish another timestamp of what and when you started to the water started to ingress. Damn. Salute to Charlotte, man. I appreciate you, Queen. Salute to Charlotte, man. Salute to you for the 350 jewels. I appreciate you, Queen. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate you, Queen. I have to oil you up behind them 5 jewels. Yeah, I mean, shout out to Dela. Shout out to Jalia. Shout out to all my people. Yeah, man, this is crazy, man. They don't know when the boat started to take on water. And I just think that's so damn weird, bro. I just think that's very weird, man. Damn. I got a second autopsy report, because we also know that one of the autopsy pictures or so was looking like a fake to be a fake. I did a video on it. Go check my video section for that video. It seemed like a fake, but I'll screenshot this to you real quick just to let y'all see what's going on. Hold up. Let me share this to you real quick, Joey. I could just get a look at it real quick. It's 5 pages. I can read them if you want me to. Yeah, but this is that. See, it's kind of the pages is kind of blurry too as well. They saying this is a second autopsy report. This is Ben Crump's name is on this one. The one that I showed you earlier from Don Lemon, that's one that's circulating online. And some reports are saying that that autopsy record better yet, that wasn't even the autopsy. I think that was the toxicology report. I don't think we have an established toxicology report yet. So this is why when Officer Brandon Tatum is saying that Nolan was on cocaine, because must be one of the boys must have told him this. You know what I'm saying? He really jumped out the window with that, especially without a confirmed toxicology report. You see what I'm saying? This is why I'm saying like Officer Tatum is just automatically taking a side and drawing a line in the sand, for lack of a better word, no pun intended here, to believe them. And if Nolan was on some yay, who's to say that they all wasn't on yay? You know what I'm saying? Why was only Nolan on cocaine if that's the case and nobody else was? You know what I'm saying? And was Nolan drinking heavily? We know everybody was out there drinking, most likely. We see them with drinks in their hands and stuff like that. But who was the young man that had the full entire bottle of vodka? That's something else that needs to be established. Okay, they go into this, man. Preliminary report, the unaliving of Nolan Xavier Wells, second autopsy, cause of death undetermined, pending investigation, manner of death undetermined, pending investigation. The forensic pathologist was retained to perform a second autopsy examination on the body of Nolan Wells. And he got his name, his age, his race, his gender, date of birth is unknown. Don't know why that's there. They should know his date of birth. Second autopsy date was July 10th. Okay. So 6 days later after he went missing. The preliminary findings: focal area of red discoloration in the soft tissue of the back of the head, right? Damn. But what is that? What is it? The cause is unknown. The body received after initial autopsy. So they had a first initial autopsy, then he received the second autopsy was conducted by them in their independent investigation. Marked decomposition. By the time they got the body, I want to know what day did the first autopsy take place. Let me see if I can ask ChatGPT or something. Hold up. Do you know the date of the first autopsy of Nolan Wells? Because we understand that the second autopsy's date was July 10th, and we can only think that the body would be decomposing more by that time, right? Tell me if you know an established date of when the first autopsy took place. Because remember, he was found 2 days later. That's the 6th. So when did they have their autopsy? The 7th or the 8th? because the second one happened on the 10th. See what I'm saying? Okay. The body was recovered. See, July 4th. Okay, cool. This is how it went. July 4th is when he went missing. July 6th is when his body was recovered 2 days later. July 7th is when the Mississippi State official autopsy happened. So the next day after they found the body, they did the autopsy. And then 3 days later, they was given a chance to do the second one. That's still a lot of time. You know what I mean? Okay, coronal incision of the scalp. The brain was removed. A Y-shaped incision of the anterior torso. The organs removed. Accompanying the body in the body cavity. Anterior internal neck structures are absent. This is where they're saying that the neck wasn't there and the lung, right? What happened to the lung? Additional procedures performed during the second autopsy, a bilateral facial dissection as well. A bilateral, maybe straight down the face. But lateral is left to right. This is lateral. Lateral movement is this. So it's not straight down, it's not up and down. Lateral is this way, left to right. No fractures, no evidence of deep tissue injury. Posterior head dissection. Focal area of red discoloration in the soft tissue of the back of the head. Occupational region. No fractures. Posterior neck dissection, no fractures, no evidence of deep tissue injury. Rib exposure dissection, no fractures, no evidence of deep tissue injury. Pelvic dissection, no fractures, no evidence of deep tissue injury. Subcutaneous and deep soft tissue dissection of this is the back of the head, of the back and the buttocks and the arms and the legs. No evidence of deep tissue injury there. Remote healed scars, left ankle. Histology submitted. Toxicology was not performed. Shit. So when they're conducting an autopsy, when is the best time to conduct the toxicology? Not after or while or currently while they're doing the first autopsy, or is it just normal to do the toxicology after or days after you even complete the autopsy? Because why didn't complete that? Let's just see what the hell's going on. Okay, hold up. They said, yes, there's an important distinction there. The toxicology samples are generally collected during the autopsy, not days after. So the testing analysis of those samples can happen later. Okay, so they have it, but they said not performed. They didn't say not analyzed. They said not performed. Why not? What the hell are you talking about? They said typically in a forensic autopsy, the body is examined, samples are collected, often included like the liquids in your body. I don't have to say it. Urine, all these things like that. Humor from the eyes, and sometimes gastric contents or tissues. And these specimens are specifically collected for possible toxicology testing. The samples are preserved and sent to a forensic toxicology laboratory. The actual laboratory testing may take days or weeks, depending on the laboratory and the number type of substances being investigated. The fact that the final toxicology report comes later does not necessarily mean that the samples weren't collected during the autopsy. Okay. So if the first autopsy on July 4th, the important question isn't necessarily did they perform the toxicology on July 7th. The better question is, were the toxicology specimens collected during July 7th autopsy, which we asking, and when were those specimens actually submitted for toxicological analysis? Okay, but when we get to like the histology is submitted, and then when we get to point 5, it says toxicology was not performed. So if it's not performed, does that mean that the samples was not taken at that time? Hold up, let's work this out real quick. Not necessarily. Toxicology was not performed does not automatically mean that no toxicology samples were collected. These are two separate things. Sample collection during the autopsy, the medical examiner may collect blood, urine, fluids from your veins, tissues, etc., and then preserve them. Toxicology testing Those samples may then be sent to a laboratory for analysis, or for the examiner may decide that the toxicology tested wasn't requested, wasn't indicated, or wasn't performed. Hmm. So if the document literally says toxicology not performed, the safest interpretation is the record is saying that a toxicological testing was not performed. It does not, by that wording alone, establish whether the specimens were collected or retained. Hmm. It don't specify, but it ain't like it's giving us everything that we need. The second autopsy was performed on Nolan Wells, revealed marks of decompositional changes. Marked decomposition can obscure the presence or absence of bruising on the skin. So the decompositional changes can obscure the presence or absence of bruising on the skin surface, especially during a second autopsy examination. For these reasons, additional dissection procedures not performed during the first autopsy examination were performed to rule out potential blunt force injuries responsible for his unaliving. These procedures included facial dissection, posterior head and neck dissection, the sections of the rib pelvic dissections, and subcutaneous and deep soft tissue dissections of the back, buttocks, arms, and legs. And there were no fractures or deep tissue injuries identified. However, dissection of the back of the head during the layered posterior neck dissection revealed a 12 by 8-inch focal area of discoloration in the deep soft tissue underlying the, so what's going on with that? But the etiology of this finding is unclear, and there are no lacerations of the overlying skin or fractures of the underlying skull. And these findings are inconclusive for pre-mort perimortem injury is blurry. I'm doing well on this shit. Perimortem injury due to both the extensive decomposition and the absence of associated injuries. This finding, however, is significant enough to be highlighted in this preliminary report for further investigation. It is important to reiterate that this finding could not have been observed in the first autopsy because the posterior head and neck dissections were not performed. Another limitation faced by this forensic pathologist was the absence of the anterior internal neck structures, the tracheal, the laryngeal cartilages, the thyroid horn, and the hyoid bone were not received with the body. It is assumed that the initial pathologist retained these structures for additional evaluation. The retention of the anterior neck structures during the initial autopsy is a common forensic pathology practice. Now, this is crazy, bro. Shit, I didn't even know I had y'all right there. I was supposed to put y'all here so y'all could have seen this shit better and show you how this is a little blurry though, but it's good though. I can still read it. The review of the anterior neck structures is incomplete. Therefore, this pathologist cannot rule out injury to the neck as a contributor or the cause of his unaliving. Because the initial autopsy rightfully removed and dissected each organ, there are additional limitations inherent in the second autopsy of Nolan Wells. The most significant of the limitations was the inability to directly observe the airway and lungs for water and directly observe the stomach for gastric contents. In addition, the original toxicology result had not been received at the time of this report. Lastly, which is weird, in my own case, I don't know. Maybe I'm jumping the gun. And lastly, in cases where unaliving has occurred in or around a body of water with suspicion of drowning, it is important to confirm how that person entered the water. So how you enter the water is a big thing. This information is especially important for those unalivings of a person who can swim, as is the case with Nolan Wells. At the time of this report, this forensic pathologist does not know the condition of Nolan Wells, i.e., the conscious or unconscious or forced or unforced, how he entered the water. Before entering the water, Definitive circumstances of the unaliving are required to determine the manner of the unaliving. And for these reasons, this pathologist cannot rule out if any intervening non-accidental factors contributed to or that caused the unaliving of Nolan Wells. With the following questions still outstanding, what are the circumstances that led to Nolan Xavier Wells entering the water? What was the body position when he was found? He was found face down in the water. That's a fact. Was there water in the airway? This could tell you if he's drowned or not, or if he was strangled, or if he, you know what I'm saying? Then we could probably go into why he got this discoloration, maybe on the back of the head, on the back of the skull in his deep tissue. Maybe he hit his head before entering the water. See what I'm saying? Is there any evidence of injuries of the anterior neck structures? We don't got them. And Jackson County has said, I believe it's Jackson County, right? They said that they not giving up the anterior neck structures and none of that. They said that all of those things are going to the grand jury. So we go into the grand jury because the grand jury determines if a case will be opened. But also on my last video, I also brought up somebody that worked with grand juries and worked with prosecutions. And he says that, especially without a suspect at hand, usually the grand jury goes by what the prosecutors is saying. And the prosecutors push it. So 99.9%, this is what he said. Go check the last video. The grand jury is going to be doing what the prosecutor want them to do. So there's a high probability that this case wouldn't even go to any trial or nothing, and there will be no suspects charged. So I want us to keep that in mind. Okay. Is there any evidence of intracranial hemorrhage, like he received a head injury or something, subdural or subarachnoid, and what was the composition of the stomach contents? We didn't get that. That's also how you take in toxicology findings to see if you was drinking or if you was probably doing some kind of drugs when you take in blood. You can find that, but even in the contents of your stomach, you can also find some of those things as well. And what are the toxicology report findings? We still don't know, bro. That's undetermined. And then they go into the back of the head. That's where the discoloration happened. They show you the actual skull to show you what part of the head. And that's like the upper head. You know what I'm saying? That's not like right there on the back by your neck. That's your skull. That's his head. Right back of your head right here where you got that little shit right here. That's the back of the head where he got that at. What's that discoloration there? You know what I'm saying? Looking like he hit his head. The back occipital bone in his head, bro. They show you that the neck structures are absent. This is gone. The lung is also gone too. Where do they show us that? Damn, bro. Yeah, man. I just read y'all a second autopsy too, just to get it on for y'all, man. Just to get it on record for y'all, man. But it's just a nasty situation. Most definitely a nasty situation. Yeah, man. We investigating this Nolan Wells, bro. Shit, man. Just reading that just left me with more questions. Hey, Ed. How you doing, Ebony? Yeah, just reading that just left me with so much more questions, bro. Just left me with more questions, man. Damn. Was he drinking heavily? What happened to Nolan Wells, man? How was he found in an area that they searched vigorously? 2 days later, he pops up in there, especially with the tides. The tides could have moved him way out to the ocean. Way to the ocean, you know, could have dragged them all the way out, bro. But yet he's found in a spot where they was already searching by a national park ranger. These are real questions, man. These are real questions. And why were the young men not being towards with the mother and came and brought her the phone? Why did she have to go with her friend and the friend went to go retrieve the phone from them? Why? And why it had no videos, why it had no pictures, why it had nothing? These are real questions that I must ask, man. This is real questions that I must ask, and I got to put this on the video as well, man. Were those young men trying to get up off that island fast? Did they break their own bilge pump? That's why they staying here. When did the water ingress? When did the Triton started taking on water? At what point? We still don't know when, okay? So when you see acceleration, the trim and the bilge pump failures, you see the takeoff. This is how you take off on a boat. The trim is down, the bow is down. It helps the boat to get on plane faster and stay in control. On plane, when the boat is on plane, you trim up, right? That's how it kind of lifts up a little bit. This is how you get more speed and better efficiency for a smoother ride. Remember, you're going over waves, right? You're going over waves, sometimes heavy seas and big waves, right? But when you put too much trim, so did they break their own bilge pump, right? When you put too much trim, the bow goes too high and it becomes dangerous. It's poor control. Then you get the slamming and the pounding in the rough waters, okay? So now how improper operation can damage systems and lead to a pump failure, okay? Who damaged the pump? Did they damage their own pump? You think the pump just damaged by itself out the blue? That makes no sense. When the bow is too high and it's got the slamming, hard landings and pounding can stress the hull, right? And the fittings and the equipment can cause cracks, can loosen the fittings and cause leaks. Number two, loose or damaged hoses and fittings. Aggressive movement can loosen hoses or clamps connected to the pump or other through the whole fittings. The water leaks in and the pump efficiency drops as the water begins to leak in. Number three, damaged wiring. Pounding and vibration can damage wiring or disconnect power to the actual bilge pump, right? And the pump may stop working. This is a bilge pump on the top right. This is what it actually looks like, okay? And it's located in the bottom lowest part of the boat, which is called the bilge. That's why it's called a bilge pump, okay? Number four, the water overwhelms the system. Water enters faster than the actual bilge pump can remove it due to the leaks or the heavy seas, and the pump can't keep up. And this is when a boat begins to flood. So we see the bilge pump removes water that collects in the lowest part of the boat, i.e. the bilge. Typically, the bilge pump is automatic, though. It removes water automatically. It keeps the boat safe and works automatically. When the water rises, it starts to pump out that water. So key takeaways: trim down to take off to get on plane safely. Trim up gradually to optimize speed and control. Avoid the bow too high. Avoid trimming up too high. This causes the slamming and the stress on the boat. And the bilge pump is your last line of defense, and it keeps it maintained or makes sure that it works, because this is what the hell happens. So my question again is, could they have destroyed their own bilge pump getting out of there fast? Were they moving too fast on that boat? Maybe some of those are the reasons of why we don't know what time the water started to take on water. And we don't even know how high the water level was, even from the C-tow audio. The woman on the phone, the operator, asked them, is it up to your anchor? He said, I don't know. We just sinking, just get out here. But then y'all sinking, but then y'all cancel a tow to use your friend to tow you. And then your boat make all these moves. From 1 to 2 to 3, from 3 to 4, right? 3 to 4, back to the original dock. From 4 to 5, the boat leaves the dock and enters Fort Bayou. From 5 to 6, the boat returns to original dock. From 6 to 7, it goes to Fort Bayou boat launch. And then from 7 to 8, the boat is towed overland to a Biloxi home. And we know that family members of people live around these areas and all of that. So if this boat was in such stress and dire straits, how was the boat able to make all of those moves? What was the fuel like on this boat at this time? What was the water levels on this boat at this time? And if this boat was really sinking, why would you be chancing it if it was being towed at all, towing it and launching it and going everywhere to these docks and redocking and redoing all of this? Why would you even chance that? Soon as you get to land, you will bring that thing up on land. But you still so sure in this boat still moving that it gets all the way to number 8 on your photograph that I'm showing you. This is my own infographic that I've created. Those are questions that I have, man. These are just some of the questions that I have. And I try to show y'all through infographics and stuff like that as well, because it gives you a visual of what's going on, and it gives you a visual of what I'm thinking and how I just been trying to break down and investigate this case in my own right. You know what I'm saying? And just kind of trying to make it all make sense, man. I don't know, man. It still doesn't make sense to me, man. But salute to everybody on Go, man. Salute to everybody in the chat that popped in, man. Salute to y'all, man. Dahlia, salute to you. Eb, salute to Eb Bunny, salute to you. Salute to Charlotte. Most definitely salute to you for the 350 jewels. I most definitely appreciate that. Let me highlight Eb and Dahlia too as well. Salute to y'all queens. I appreciate all y'all queens. Hopefully y'all having a great day. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day. Yeah, man. Heart goes out to the Wells Wansley family. RIP to Nolan Wells. Hope they get justice. Hope they get transparency. Hope they get a full, transparent investigation. If you're a man listening to my voice, help a young person, help a young boy. You know what I'm saying? To avoid some things out here, man, especially if you've been through some things out here and you've seen some real things happen and you've experienced things. And if you're a woman listening to my voice, try to help a young woman, help a young girl to avoid some of the ills of life that you've been plagued through, that you've been plagued with, or you went through, or things that you've seen people go through. I think that's how we get to help in our future, even if we're accredited or not. That's how we help our futures, by helping the young people. And young people need to be protected at all costs. It takes a village to raise a child. And I also think it takes a village to protect the child as well. So I'll be back in a minute, y'all. Salute to y'all. Make sure y'all liking the video, hyping this video, sharing the videos, commenting after the video's live. I want you to comment in the comment section. That helps it. Make sure you liking, sharing, hyping, all of those things. But subscribe to Uda on Go. Make sure y'all all on Go, because we all on Go together. It's not about an individual thing here, even though we all going to be individuals. I think that we're much stronger together. And only the enemy wants us to always separate. You know what I'm saying? So make sure you are subscribed, and make sure you hit the notification bells, and make sure that you're notified when we're dropping new content. Uda, Uda, Uda. Always on Go. All my niggas from the Uda. All my niggas turn shooters. Uda, Uda. All my ops turn rap.